morning. On behalf of the Adult Education Committee, I would like to welcome your participation in the video history, Seniors Footprints on Slave Lake. Could you please begin by introducing yourself?
Sure. Denny Garratt. I was born in Ingersoll, Ontario, cheese capital of Ontario. And I was born in 1946, February 28th.
Denny? Can you tell me when you came to the Slave Lake?
I arrived in Slave Lake in 1972.
What brought you here?
I came here because I had a job interview with a group of people that wanted me to become the first, what did they call it? A detached youth worker in the province of Alberta, I think in Canada. It was a new position that they were a pilot project, dealing with youth that had problems with then drugs and stealing vehicles and the like. So I had this interview, and my wife and I drove up from Lethbridge, and first people I met were the interviewees. Amongst those were Susan Giesbrecht and Dennis Barton.
And how did that work out?
It worked out all right. I was a bit nervous because my wife had issued an ultimatum to me. Like, I went through university to become a teacher, and at the end of my education, I told my wife I never wanted to step foot in a school or a schoolroom again. And she said to me, I don't give a damn what you do, just do something. So this was the first opportunity I had after graduation to come and actually get a job.
What was Slave Lake like in 1972?
The thing that stands out in my mind most was the amount of mud. The new high school had just been built, but for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how the buses were going to get down that road to deliver the students to the school. That's the first memory I had. The second memory was that it was smaller than I expected. There was only a population of about 1,000 people, 1,100 people, and I had heard a lot about Slave Lake, and so it was the size. And it was just developing as far as I was concerned. My view was that, you know, here they had put in 2 new subdivisions on the east side of the town, and it was just starting to move.
Did you have a problem finding a place to live?
Actually not. Slave Lake Development had just completed their multi-unit complex at the far end of town towards the airport, and my wife and I were lucky enough to get a unit in that development, so we were lucky.
How did your job progress after that?
Actually, it was an exciting job. I only got shot at a couple of times. I was pursuing a couple of young fellows at one point in time, and their parents saw me coming after them, and it was actually the parent that shot 22 at me. Missed me, hit my vehicle, but turned out no harm, no foul. So, but it was an interesting job, and I went from there to a government position a couple of years later with the Child Welfare Department.
And what did that entail?
A lot of the same contacts, but in a different context. I was working at that time for the government, which was, there were a lot of restraints that I didn't have in previously. So I didn't last as a government employee very long. I remember Ed Gromack, he was in charge of social services at the time, saying, Denny, you're doing a good job and we want you here, but you've got to stop talk. You've got to stop bringing your dog to the office. And that worked out, but it was too constraining for me. That's my recollection of working for the provincial government.
What did you do then?
I became an entrepreneur. Myself and another child welfare worker, Peter Moore, he and I formed a company called Garratt Moore Associates Limited. And we, from then on, did contract work for the government. And that was a lot of fun, very exciting, and we had a lot of great experiences.
What year would that have been?
Oh, golly, about the same time that I moved out here to Canyon Creek, about 76, 77. And yeah, we had 10 or 12 very good years of work.
What was it like in Slave Lake in 76, 77?
Well, 76, 77, the population had risen to 1,300. And believe it or not, it was becoming crowded. A lot of the mud had been paved over, and people were moving in. It became it was quite a bustling little place at the time. So I don't know whether it was me feeling cramped or my dog feeling cramped and not having enough room to run around and people not complain about him. So we looked for a place out in along the lake here in Canyon Creek.
A snapshot of Slave Lake's Main Street in 1977.
Well, in 1977, I believe the old hotel was still there, right on the corner where, let's see, the Royal Bank is now. Beside that was the newly built IGA store. Their parking lot was just being paved, and the church had just been moved from what was their parking lot to its present position. The Legion was still there. Old Town still ended at just past the Beachway Cafe, or started just after the Beachway Cafe. And things progressed from there. On the other side of the street, which was Bill's Park's grocery store, was now a convenience store. The theater was still there. I believe Howard Robertson had the sports shop at that time. It was where the Robin's Nest is now. So many changes, Bob, and such a poor memory.
What was the draw to Canyon Creek?
The Canyon Creek was, the draw there was, we wanted to get along the lake. We had fostered two boys, and my wife was pregnant with our first boy. And I just wanted to raise them in a more rural area. And that was the reason we started looking.
What was in Canyon Creek at that time?
Not very much. The house that's just west of us was newly built. Carl Falker built that. There was a home about, I would say, 1.5 kilometers farther west. You couldn't see it from the road. And to the east of us, there was nothing until the corner. And Gilbert Pearson. And the old store, Ernie Hilker's store, was on the corner there, which was quite a deal. Ernie had just moved to BC and it was taken over by, I can't even remember their names. Isn't that terrible? Levitt. Mrs. and Mr. Levitt. And they had a number of kids. And yeah, they ran the general store. Eventually, it came to pass that my partner and I, Peter Moore, we bought that store. It got torn down, and we eventually sold it to Alberta Housing for housing. Are you having trouble with my dog there, Bob?
I just don't want him to bump the camera.
Come here, Rep.
So
Yeah.
the overall population would have been,
Oh, less than 200. I would say probably about 180 people with all the cats, dogs, and children. That was about it.
was the fish hatchery active?
No, it had been the hatchery itself was the hotel, and it had been turned into a hotel. The crossing, right across from me to the north, right on the lake, was the site of the old, I guess it was be a warehouse, but it had been torn down as well. So by the time we were here, mink ranching was dead, and pretty much the commercial fishing that went with it.
At one time, Canyon Creek Widewater were bigger than Slave Lake.
Well, yeah, the buildings were here when we came, but they had been vacated. There were storage places. You could tell that during the heyday of the mink ranching, that this was a very viable little place.
So you moved out to Canyon Creek and
Well, we came out here thinking that it would be cheaper. It was cheaper in respect to buying a house and sort of setting up the family, but the travel was something that we had to factor into the whole situation, but the saw-off was that it was worth it. Our kids had lots of room to play, and it was comforting to me to know that they weren't hanging around the pool room or getting into trouble in Slave Lake after school. And it was great. It was great that way. To me, I think it enhanced our family life living here.
And the kids went to school?
In Slave, they took the bus every morning. I built a little shack out here. It's gone now, for them to stay warm in until the bus came. And yeah, they took the bus in and took the bus home, and no worse for the experience. So they both graduated from, excuse me. The kids, they caught the bus every morning. They came home every night, and my wife and I were very happy with their experience at school, and it was very gratifying to know that they weren't hanging around in Slave Lake after school, and They had lots of things to do when they got home. They had their chores, and it was great.
Are they still in Slave Lake?
No, actually, they both live in Edmonton. My younger boy, Darcy, is a mechanic, and he's also the parts manager at Riverside Honda. And my older boy is a paramedic with an outfit. I'm not even sure. It's an international medic outfit, and he's contracted to camp in Fort McMurray. And he has been doing emergency medical work for 10 or 12 years, predominantly in the McMurray area.
So,
No, I just wanted to say that they, as brothers, I could never get along with my brother more than 5 minutes. We were fighting, but as brothers, they get along very well, and they jointly bought a house in Edmonton, and they're doing quite well. I'm very proud of them.
any grandkids?
No grandkids. The kids aren't married. The boys aren't married yet. With the one in Fort McMurray, social life is a little bit tough for him. And my younger boy, he has quite a work ethic, and between work and sports and dating girls, he hasn't had time to find one and settle down.
During your time in Slave Lake, were you involved in any volunteer sports activities, or?
I helped out at the high school with a couple of the teams, but predominantly not. I found that in working with kids, which I did when I first came to town, and then our consulting company that we formed later on, we ran homes in High Prairie, Grand Prairie, Slave Lake for kids. Well, they were group homes for kids that were having trouble, and that kept me very busy. So I did that for a number of years and found it very gratifying, but very busy.
What were some of the other entrepreneurial items that you got involved with?
Entrepreneurial pursuits. Well, at one time, I was a member of a company called MGM. And Moore, Garratt, and McEwen, the three principals. And we had a computer company. And we developed not only software for the provincial government, which they used on for repatriating clients from the Michener Center to home community. We developed software that would track and monitor their lifestyle and how they adapted. We also sold computer systems. In fact, I think we sold the first computer system to the town of High Prairie. I talk about it like I know about it, but the fact of the matter is I was simply a salesman. When it came to turning the computer on, if somebody showed me, I knew how. Other than that, it was the McEwen in MGM. He was the guy that was the expert, and we relied on him 100%.
What would the time been that you did this?
Oh, golly. This was in the early 80s that we did this. And but we were heavily involved with consulting with the government and running these homes and programs that not only repatriated people from Michener Center, but also dealt with people with disabilities.
What was happening in Slave Lake in the 80s, the early 80s?
My recollection is that it was a going concern. The oil patch was in full swing. We had every service company that you could imagine. It was transient when I first came here in the 70s, but I think it was even more transient in that more people were being attracted to the area and more people were working out in the camps, and it was almost a surreal type of atmosphere around the growth of Slave Lake.
What was the average stay, you would think?
Probably about 2 years. I know when I first came here, my wife and I, we said we're going to give it a try for 2 years. And here it is, 2010, and we're still here. Eb, you stop. Don't bother Bob.
So, what is your recollection of the forest industry at that time?
The forestry industry, well, the people that I was aware of in forestry were the Vanderwells, of course, and the fact that the Tripp mills were still running, Ziegler was still running. You know, we had it was, besides the oil industry, it was the second main industry in the area, and it's always been strong. I feel so badly that it's fallen on bad times in the last several years, but yeah, forestry. I remember having a great many friends in the forest industry. So, but like I say, I was pretty busy doing a number of other things.
What were those other things?
Well, when I look back, I think, well, I did a lot right up into the middle 80s. And I wore several hats. I started a company called, I can't even remember the name of the company. We made box liners for Ford and Chrysler, or Ford and GM trucks. And box liners and truck box accessories, I guess you would call them, toolboxes and the like. And but then I had a bit of a trauma in my life, and that sort of changed the direction of my whole existence, I guess. But I don't know if that's something you want to know about now.
Well, one of our questions is, what tragedies happened in your life, the life-altering experiences?
Well, I look back at it, and it wasn't exactly a tragedy, but it certainly altered the experiences that I would incur afterward. It seems that I was a little bit too busy in the pursuit of exciting things to do, and I had a bit of a memory dysfunction. And after that, I couldn't remember my own name. I couldn't remember where I lived. I couldn't remember my wife's name. I couldn't remember a damn thing. And the verdict came down from the doctors that I would have to change my lifestyle, that I would have to give up all of the boards and the activities and the companies and make my life a simpler, easier life. So I did that. Eventually, my memory started coming back. I remember sitting down and resigning from a number of boards and explaining to people that I could no longer do this or that. And yeah, everything came back, but it took a while. And from then on, I took a real job. I was interviewed by Sun Life of Canada, and I became an agent and a financial advisor with Sun Life of Canada. And I did that for the next 20 years. So my life as an entrepreneurial type of person stopped, and I learned what it was like to be employed by someone, but at the same time, it allowed me to reconnect with a lot of people that I had met before, and I thought they were friends, and I wanted to I had a chance to reaffirm that. And it was good. I enjoyed it. I like going into people's homes, drinking their coffee, commenting on their furniture, and getting to know people. I loved it, and so it worked out fine.
And when did you get involved in politics?
I had my first taste of politics in the 80s, actually, when Canyon Creek was part of the ID. There was a vacant spot on the ID Council, and I was approached to fill that spot. I didn't really quite know what to expect, but I said yes, and I'm glad I did. I'm very glad that I had that experience. And then 9 years ago, I had or was it 9? Golly, I can't even put together these dates. Yeah, about 9 years ago, I ran for council when we were an MD, not an ID. We actually had some self-determination, and we weren't an advisory council. I ran as a councillor, and I was lucky enough to get in. And then the following term, I ran as Reeve, and I was lucky enough to get in. And here it is 6 years later. I just run for Reeve, and once again, was lucky enough to get in. So, yeah, I've enjoyed my time in politics. I've been very lucky.
What are some of the things that have happened in the MD Slave League in the last 9 years?
Oh, golly. Now, we have put together some of the most elaborate, most expensive projects I would never have thought possible. We put in a complete sewer system from one end of Canyon Creek, and it will be completed at the other end of Widewater in 2011. We have redone all of the water lines, for example. We built a new water plant, state-of-the-art water plant several years ago. Not only in Canyon Creek, but also in Smith. And we've upgraded the water facilities in Flatbush. We have done tremendous things with the roads, with the infrastructure that has been there for 40, 50 years. We've upgraded, added to, and yeah, when I think of the the distance that we've gone as an MD in the last 9 years, it's phenomenal. Even now, we have 5 subdivisions, multi-parcel subdivisions being developed in the MD. And up until 3 or 4 years ago, I don't think we had 5 in the first 6 years I was involved. So things are moving very quickly, and expectations are changing very rapidly.
What are the components of MD 124?
Geographically, 124, it runs from Asino, which is just west of Canyon Creek here, all the way east to Flatbush, and it includes Smith. Doesn't include Swan Hills, but we're a very, very large geographic area, and it's very much a challenge to look after the number of roads. For example, over 500 kilometers of gravel road. You can't travel it all in one day. So it's a big job. We have an excellent administration, and I've been blessed with great counselors throughout the time that I've spent with the MD.
In your stay in the area, what are some of the most important memories that you have?
Well, some of the most important memories are based around my family life and the participation of my kids in sports, my kids in their everyday lives. I look at what's important in life when you ask a question like that, and the things that are most important to me are the life of my family, my friends, and I don't know if I can pick out individual functions or things that are more important than others. I'd have to really give that some thought.
While you're thinking about that, what are some of the most important things that have happened in Slave Lake and area in the last 38 years?
Well, I think the growth, the maturity, the infrastructure, the fact that I've seen Slave Lake go from sort of an infant that was crawling around, and now I see a community that has retirees, that has grown up, that has matured, and a testament to that is what they've experienced in the last 5 years. They're now they have all the components, the big box stores, the Tim Hortons. I think they have 3 McDonald's when you count the ones at Walmart. But more importantly, the infrastructure of the town is improving drastically, and like they're now building a field house, which I would have never have thought would be a component in the infrastructure. They have the 2 arenas now. I remember pitching in and volunteering my time to build the first arena, block by block, a cinder block building. I'm astounded at the growth. My wife is a nurse, and I remember the old hospital and the floods, and having to evacuate patients, and now they have the new hospital and the kidney unit, and I just see a huge maturity factor in the town of Slave Lake today.
How would you describe the MD's part in this growth?
Well, I've always maintained that that we're part of a whole. We're not. There's no way that you can cut off an arm and say that we're not. We're integral in the growth of Slave Lake itself. For every 10 people that move into the area, 2 move into the rural area, and as they grow, we grow. As their demands change, our demands change. And it's very, very important that recognize the fact that as an area, we are a regional center. And that includes the MD, the town, and all the components around. So I'm very happy at that. The relationship with the town and the municipal district has never been better. I remember 10, 12 years ago, the problems that the two communities had getting on the same page, rowing so the boat went in the right direction. Now I see it, that is happening, and it's for the betterment of the whole area.
How would you describe Slave Lake area to somebody who'd never been here?
Personally, I think it's an untapped jewel. It's the lake and what it brings to this area, the outdoors aspect, all the recreational activities, winter and summer. This area to me is one of the most beautiful in the province of Alberta. And if you haven't experienced it, you have to. And if you're like my wife and I and our family, once we experienced it, we stayed. And that's probably the most positive endorsement that I can give for the area. I love it, and I would like everybody to have that opportunity.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so, Bob. I think you've tapped me out.
The Slave Lake Adult Education Committee thanks you for sharing your memories and stories of the development of Slave Lake, and I wish you a long and prosperous retirement.
Thank you very much.